Hello and welcome to Yes, You Are Brave. This is a podcast where we are going to set off on a journey together to find and build our brave, where we explore all the ways that you have been brave and all the ways that you can be brave again. Because even though we may have forgotten or we may have fallen out of practice, we're all brave. And I'm on a mission to prove it and help you believe that yes, you are brave. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Yes, You Are Brave. I'm Pawnee, I'm your host. Super excited you're here, and oh my goodness, can you believe it? This is episode 90. Isn't that insane? Episode 90, it's kind of crazy to think how much has happened in the since we started this podcast and how far that I have come. It's really exciting. I'm super excited to talk to you about this. Things are going to change just slightly in the format and things like that moving forward, but we're still going to be here. We're still going to be talking brave, and it's going to be fantastic. So let's jump in and let's talk brave. Slight disclaimer, my window is open because it's a beautiful day finally, and you may hear chickens crowing in the background as usual, actually. But today I want to talk about being brave enough to accept the peace when it comes. I know that there is a lot going on in the world, and I know that all of you have 1.5 million things that you're trying to get done, and struggles that you're working through, and peace that you're trying to make, and bridges you're trying to mend, advancements. There's a lot of things that you are doing, and they are amazing and they're wonderful. And sometimes it can be very easy to get caught up in all of the crazy, to get caught up in the drama. And sometimes we forget that there is also this possibility for peace. There's also this possibility to find things and moments that are just still and are just calm. And I know that everybody has their own way of finding those things and their own version of peace in places that they go for peace, which is fantastic. But I want to talk a little bit about maybe taking the time to, first of all, go to those places and invite that peace into your life. And then also to maybe spend some time sitting with that and let that comfort you, let that bring you some peace, some rejuvenation, if you will. So last week was awful. It was just an awful, awful week. And there was a lot of reasons, but it was an awful week. And I went to the temple, which for me has always been a very comforting place. And honestly, it was really hard to get there last week. And I was hoping that I would go and I would do some service, which is basically what we believe that you do in the temple, service for people that can't do it themselves. And I would come out feeling better. I fought really hard to get there, meaning it was this huge fight in myself to get there. And I got there and I went in and I spent some time there, and I got out and I just didn't feel like I didn't feel any better. And so I sat there on a bench outside the temple, and I had gone, I don't know, it was something like 8:30, 8:45 or something. So when I got out, it was about between 9 and 10. And I was sitting out on a bench. It was dark, looking up at the temple, and I was just still struggling. And I don't know, sat there crying and pouring my heart out in prayer. And then I did some writing later that evening and went to bed. And it just wasn't that great of a day. Well, that was last week. This week has been a much better week and much more productive, lots of things that are better. And yesterday I realized, at the time of this recording, yesterday was Thursday, that I had not been to the temple this week. And I didn't even I realized that I didn't even have an appointment scheduled. So usually I schedule like 3-4 weeks out at a time. And then I just get a notification on my phone that says, hey, tomorrow at this time you're going to the temple. And it works out pretty well. But I had not scheduled one for this week. So I got on yesterday afternoon, found a time that I could go last night, actually. Then I went and dropped my car off at the shop. My sister picked me up little while later. I borrowed their car and I went to the temple. Now I did the same thing this week as I did last week, but it just had a different feeling. There was such a feeling of peace and love. I ran into somebody from my hometown that now lives here, one of my friend's moms, and she's just always one of those people that makes you feel like everything is going to be okay. She's always got this big, beautiful smile on her face. And it was just a really sweet experience. And going in and doing it, I don't know, it was just a much different feel. And the work was the same, but I just felt much better. So I came out of the temple last night and I was, like I said, I was in a much, much better place. And it was still light outside because it was a little bit earlier in the evening that I had gone. And of course, the temple, the grounds are always done beautifully. There's big, huge flower gardens that are replanted with every season. And so I walked out and it was just a beautiful night. It was really pretty. So I went and I sat next to one of the on the wall next to one of the flower gardens. And I just sat there. And again, I found myself in a place of praying and just kind of expressing how things were going. And they were so much better. And I found the peace last night that I had been looking for last week. And I know that can be frustrating when we go searching for peace and we try to find it in places that have always been a comfort. And for some reason, doesn't necessarily happen on the time we want it to. It doesn't happen when we're looking for it in that particular moment. But last night, like I said, I found it sitting outside the temple next to these beautiful flowers. They have one set of flower gardens that are planted basically like with just yellow and purple. And it's really pretty. And so sitting there, it smells really nice. And just, there was a peace that I haven't had in a while. And it was beautiful. It was amazing. And I just found myself just sitting there, not really wanting to leave, not really wanting to almost even move. Because sometimes I think that in this crazy world, if we're not taking the time to stop and actually find peace, actually allow peace into our lives, then we're not going to have it. And so, like I said, I sat there for probably a half an hour. I had some thoughts that I put down on a notepad, like a note app. Anyway, I did some writing on my phone, took some notes of things that I wanted to do later, and just let the peace be there. And sit in the peace. So I want to ask you, when is the last time that you were looking for peace and you were in a place? First of all, put yourself in a place that you could find that peace. And I know that maybe that sounds silly or strange, but the simple fact of the matter is that we cannot enjoy things, we cannot have experiences unless we are putting ourselves in a position to actually have those experiences. If you want to connect more with nature, you actually have to get out of the house and find some nature. And for some people, that's a little bit easier than others, depending on where you live. Some people, it is a bit more work, right? But if you want to connect more with nature, you've got to actually take the steps to connect more with nature. If you want to unplug, you have to actually unplug. You have to turn that phone on to do not disturb or airplane mode or whatever. You have to actually close the laptop. You have to put yourself in a position to have the thing that you want. And I think that peace is kind of the same thing. I've also been thinking about, in some of the things that I'm doing, the book that I'm writing, there's a big thing about peace. And it's not about, I've discovered with peace, because I've always like, oh, you got to find your peace, you got to do this. And I've realized that yes, that there is some truth to that, but you also have to be willing to make peace. And that for me has been kind of a game changer, because I feel like when you use the word find, not that there's anything wrong with it, but it gives them the idea that like it's lost, or you just have to keep searching, and maybe you get lucky and you find it and maybe you don't. But if I'm finding peace, if I'm trying to find peace, first of all, I feel like try is also a word that I've kind of discovered for me is a little bit of a cop-out, like in a failing word. But if you're trying to find peace, it can be very elusive. It can always be somewhere else. But if you're working to make peace, then that is a whole different ballgame. That's a whole different way of looking at it. And when you realize that peace, you make peace. You don't find it, you make it. And I think that that can be a huge game changer, because in this world, nobody's making your peace for you. Nobody is putting in the time and the effort to make sure that you are comfortable. I mean, we try to make it seem that way. And there are people that are working to make sure everybody feels included and everybody feels loved. And I do feel like that is something that we should strive for. We should always be working to make sure that people are included and people are loved and people are accepted. But the simple fact of the matter is most people are not doing that for everybody. And most people are not going to be doing that for us. So we have to make a place, make a time for us, for ourselves to be in a position to actually feel peace, to be in a position to actually have that calm, that quiet, where we can just sit with ourselves and we can feel peace. We can allow that peace to come into our lives, and we can then sit with it, and we can allow it to bring comfort and to bring solace to our hearts and to our souls. I know that this seems a little out there maybe, but I think that sometimes we don't spend as much time with the good things as we do with the not so good things. And I know I've talked before about taking time to sit with your anger and feel it so that it can go move on. And I know that this is kind of the same idea, but I feel like also the more we allow the peace in our lives, the longer we're going to have peace in our lives, the more we're going to have it. And because peace, I feel like, is not quite the same thing as anger, because obviously they're different emotions and stuff like that. But for me, if I allow the peace to come in, if I make room for it, it comes and it will stay a lot of times as long as I will allow it to stay. Anger just wants to be heard, needs to be heard, needs to be validated. So for me, anger comes, and until I sit down and listen to it, it will stay. Even if I don't want it, it will stay as long as until I listen and I validate that emotion, that feeling, I hear it, then it will go. But peace for me is the opposite of, if I allow it to come in, then it's going to come. And as long as I allow it to, as long as I have a space for it, it's going to stay. And I realize that as a human being, I can't actually keep peace like all the time in my life, like 24/7, but I can have it, I think, a lot more than I do now. I think that peace is maybe not quite so elusive as we make it seem. And I think it's just about finding those, not finding, but making those small moments, those small experiences to allow the peace into our lives. So whether it is spending some time in the morning with maybe your coffee or your tea, just listening to the silence and getting your bearings before you go into the day, or maybe it's some time on a yoga mat, or I love to watch the sunset. I love to watch the colors change, and I feel like it's just this free show every night. If I take some time to sit down and actually enjoy it, it brings really great peace for me. I love getting out in nature, going hiking. I don't do it nearly enough, and I have some really cool places really close to me that I should be doing it more. But I love getting out there, being where there's not many people around, and just having that. There's something about being out where it's just the buzz of little bugs and just you. It's amazing experiences. But where is your peace? What setting is most conducive to you finding and feeling peace? And like I said, I attend the temple. For me, that's a big thing. And I talk in other places about finding like a church or a place, and I use the word church very loosely. Okay, so wherever your church is, you need to find a place that you can go that brings you peace, a place that is safe and you can feel, where you feel safe to feel whatever it is you're feeling. So I hope this has made sense. I just want you to know that peace is possible, and that even though it may take more time than you would like it to, I would have really loved this feeling of peace and hope last week when I was in a very, very dark, deep hole. It didn't exactly come last week because I think honestly I was not in a place to receive it. What I got last week, instead of this beautiful, big, all-encompassing feeling of peace that I wanted, I got this little tiny sliver of light and hope. And then that has pulled me over the last week has pulled me back out of that hole, that deep, dark hole. And I have been able to then set myself up and put myself in a position to actually have the peace that I was looking for last week. So also remember that it doesn't always come exactly when you want it, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't keep putting yourself in a position to be able to feel it. And when that peace comes, take a minute and sit with it. Sit with that peace, allow it into your life, open your arms and welcome it, and let it stay. Let it be a comfort. Let it be what you need. Peace is possible, just like everything else is possible. And you, my friend, deserve peace, and you deserve to be happy, and you deserve to spend the time to do that. So I hope you have a fantastical week. I hope you are a little bit uplifted and a little bit encouraged to maybe spend some time finding your peace. Spend some time with that peace when it comes, and maybe think, what do I need to do to make peace in my life? You're amazing. You're awesome. You're wonderful. I love you, and I'm very, very proud of you, and I believe that you can do whatever it is that you set your mind to do. You have a fantastical week.
Thanks for listening, and if you enjoyed what you've heard today, please leave a review down below and share this with anyone that you feel like could use a little more brave in their life. And if you'd like to follow more of my journey to be brave, you can follow me on social media and link down below. Have a fantastic day, and don't forget to be brave.